Hello, welcome. These episodes, these podcast episodes have been very, very cool to film. These topics have been topics that are near and dear to my heart, and it's been really cool to share a lot of what I have been feeling, to share insights I have. It's been really special to have people tuning in and watching. I'm just today feeling very grateful. I have more episodes that I've recorded and working on editing. I just thought I would come in here and do some kind of mid-season recap and a little gratitude check-in. I've released 6 episodes so far. I think this season will have 12 episodes total. These topics have been not the easiest to talk about. This particular podcast I wouldn't say is like a fun watch, light watch, whatever. It stemmed from my own experiences of disappointment, realizing what was underlying a lot of medical training and why it didn't really make sense to me in terms of how I imagined it. Some things I've learned over the course of these 6 episodes is that these topics need space to breathe. The concepts and things I explore in them, they have some depth, both emotionally and in terms of experience. So this isn't really content in the typical way that people release content, and the temptation, especially because I'm sharing these on YouTube, is to do the regular YouTuber things. Have a schedule that you post, have a message to your audience about what your schedule is gonna be, have consistency or whatever that is. I'm not prioritizing that. I'm prioritizing authenticity, staying true to myself, being honest about what it is I have to say, and doing it from a place of abundance, as in I'm not afraid that, if I don't say this the right way, then it won't hit the I have to just not allowing fear to be something that's a part of the process of me creating these episodes and sharing the things I do share. Allowing trust instead. Trust that what I have to say will find the right person and that the right person will want to hear more. These things live on the internet forever, and I'm very grateful to be in a place where I can understand myself and be okay with these things being found by people 5 years, 10 years from now, wherever I am in life, right? I may be about 6 or 7 months out from the experience that sparked me to start this podcast, and once it's on the internet, it's gonna be there forever. So really thinking about the long-term impact and the long-term integrity of the things I say and the things I put out, and giving myself space to exist in that. And I really am grateful to you all for tuning in anyway whenever I release an episode. I feel a sense of community and kinship, which I'm really grateful for. The other thing I've toyed with that I might experiment with in future episodes is shorter time. Maybe breaking things up into parts, not necessarily having an hour, 30 minutes each time. Initially, my hope was 30 minutes, but then things kind of got out of hand, and of course, when have I ever made a plan and stuck to it exactly? But yeah, maybe 15 minutes, 10 minutes, I don't know. Let me know what you think. It was never straightforward, and I thought I would start to express and talk about some of the things that didn't make sense, and initially started off with me telling my story and talking about my experiences. I keep doing that throughout the episodes. Every single episode is inspired by something I've experienced, and every truth I share in these episodes come from things that I had to go through and patterns that I observed as I reflect on my time in medical school and broadly graduate training in the health sciences. It's a thing of joy, of vulnerability, self-reflection, community building, and service. I've broadly talked about the dynamics of what makes medical school a cult. I've also talked from the perspective of someone who went in idealistic. My hope with having this podcast was I would share things that were not obvious to me when I started medical school, and maybe aren't obvious to other people, but are very true. I didn't think that anyone would resonate or that people would tune in to watch like the way that people have tuned in to watch. I knew going public with my story or starting a channel or whatever would totally ruin my chances of going back into medicine, and I think there was a part of me that did it for that reason, to hold myself accountable, to be true to myself, and to be real and honest about what it is I'm experiencing. I think there's a part of me that knew if I did this, then I wouldn't be tempted to stray away from what I know is true deep down, which is that in my experience, having seen medicine for what it is, I would have to shave off parts of myself to truly be able to survive and fit in. Medical training is a big deal. Medical training is a big deal. The entire healthcare industry and healthcare system and people's lifespans, their lives, are entrusted into the hands of medical professionals, and the state of medical training is so tragic. The foundations of it are so tragic. The people that we put our trust in, the people that we look to care for us, aren't well themselves. It makes sense that things aren't looking so good or going so well. So in my little corner of the internet with a community of people who watch these episodes, my hope is that it makes sense. My hope is that it makes sense why things are so shit, you know? My hope is that there's a little bit more thought and a little bit more analysis and a little bit more understanding of the systems that we have to make do with and why they're so limited. And in that, we're able to express ourselves a bit more, to negotiate and understand our limits when it comes to how much we're giving and how much we're expecting, and start to see the things that we have control over and the things that we can do to care for ourselves as people, as individuals. As much as it's tough and as much as it sucks, ultimately it's up to me to make space for myself and to care for myself, because systems aren't going to do that for me. The people I started medical school with are doctors now, and it's such a thing of joy to see them graduate and move on and look forward to the rest of their careers and to be celebrated the way that they are. There's so many themes in the culture of medicine that make it such that the things that are celebrated and the things that are exalted would have been detrimental and destructive to me. I can't say that shouldn't be the case, because I can't change medicine. What ultimately I'm here to do is talk about what medicine is, see it for what it is, and why it is what it is. Not necessarily offering suggestions or improvements, because I don't think it makes sense to try to change a system of training that is useful. Like, there's a reason why medical training is the way it is, and there's a utility that it serves, there's a need that it meets. Is it always in the benefit of trainees? Not necessarily, but there is a medical industrial complex that relies on medical training and medical trainees to function. There's a need for people to have healthcare providers, doctors, nurses, all health professions, and unfortunately that comes at the expense of people's lives. On the patient side, the outcomes aren't great. Also on the trainee side, the outcomes aren't great either. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, given how much the opposite is spoken about, especially at places like where I went to med school. I was listening to the ceremony. I tuned in to support a bunch of my friends, and I was remembering that as an undergraduate, I watched a couple of my friends graduate from pharmacy school, medical school, and I went to their ceremonies, and I was just thinking to myself, if I was an undergrad who was listening to this in the audience, I would aspire to go to UCSF, I would aspire to go to med school. The commencement speaker, both the student and the faculty speaker, were so candid about the importance of mental health and stuff like that, you know? And they were so real about oppression and meeting patients where they are and blah, blah, blah. It just seems so antithetical to how medicine really functions, right? So in my head, a lot of this podcast has been me trying to untangle the dissonance between what medicine wants to be and what it actually is. And I will always say that everybody who finds themselves in these positions of power where they're causing a lot of harm, I don't believe they started out intending to cause harm. I do believe that the apparatus, the instrument that is the bureaucracies involved in charging people money for good health, involved in setting up capitalism and putting it side by side with healthcare delivery, that forces people to do evil things and to cause harm. It doesn't mean that they are absolved. My hope and my joy and my aim with this podcast has always been to point out why does it feel one way as a trainee, but then what I see around me is completely different. These topics are heavy. I've really slowed down the pace of my release and recording and just given myself space to digest all of it. These are deeply personal truths that I learned and deeply personal things that I'm sharing. Now I share every other week. I also have been living the rest of my life, getting involved with new things and new hobbies, which I'll probably be sharing about in other videos that are not podcast related. The rest of my channel is probably going to look very mosaic because I am very interested in a bunch of different things that aren't just talking about my experiences in medical school. This is something that has been really healing to me, to have you all tuning in, to have you all watching, even if you're not able to engage. And I hope it's been of service. I hope it's been validating, enriching, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just grateful. I'm going to get my computer. I'm going to put the knitting away for now. I'm going to end the recording here. Thank you all for witnessing. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for your... Oh, I was was gonna say something else. I've been scared to ask for feedback or input, but I'm not going to allow the folks who are not as supportive to keep me from connecting with the folks who are. I started a little Cult of Medical School inbox. I'm going to leave the link in the description if you want to give me any feedback, if you want to talk about any experiences that resonated, offer suggestions for future episodes. I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions, put them there too. Tell me what topics you want to hear me talk about. I know the comment section might not always be a space to share your thoughts, so I just thought I would try this. Depending on how it goes, I might keep it going. We'll just test it out and see how it goes. I'm looking forward to hearing from you all. This has been a creative process for me, as all creative processes do. They allow me to make sense of something that made no sense. And yeah. So with boundless heart, should one cherish all living things, radiating kindness over the entire world, upwards towards the sky, downwards towards the depths, omitting none. I will chat to you soon. Bye. Okay. Bye.